what was this team before Calais Campbell got here? Obviously, the one bad year, but you look at it, Foles wasn't here for the turnaround. And there's been no one, if they are successful, there's been no one better in that locker room, including Nick Foles, even though he's been great, but not for that stretch of time, that's been able to get through to players like Fournette, like, Telvin Smith potentially, let's say that he comes back. Calais would be the linchpin for all of that, I think, to come together.
He's going to be the second player to touch the Lombardi Trophy. They're going to hand Shad will hand it to Tom, who will hand it to Doug, who will hand it to Foles, who will hand it to Calais.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree.
And Foles may even, knowing him, the little that we do,
back out.
He may defer it to he just would probably be the MVP.
Right.
So but I mean, I would not be surprised if Calais was the first Jaguar player to touch the Lombardi Trophy in that scenario. I mean, I really do think if that were to happen, Calais Campbell would become I think he would be the most beloved figure in Jacksonville sports history by a mile.
Wow. Wow. How about that? Now that is saying something. And again, you don't know what else the other guys are going to do to contribute to this hypothetical Super Bowl championship we're talking about. But I'll say this, in terms of beloved Jaguars, this 25 years, so there's a lot to celebrate. We're all going to be celebrating the 25 years of the Jaguars, which is kind of cool. The 5 most beloved Jaguars, there's a gap between them and anybody else. I think most people would say Brunell, Baselli, Fred, Jimmy, and probably Maurice Jones-Drew, and then there's a gap. And there's been some beloved Jaguars. It's not just 5. But would you say there's a gap?
Yeah,
after
I think
that?
McCardell is close, and maybe their gap after.
Okay. So, but I think there's a 5, and then there's everybody else. And you're right, McCardell's next. Would you disagree with that?
No, I wouldn't disagree, but I would throw in, and it's funny to say a kicker, but I would throw Josh Scobie very closely into the mix as far as fan favorites.
Yeah, the people love Scobes. I agree with that, but I still think in my mind there's a gap. He's the one guy, and who knows what Foles does, that could get in that grouping. Right? He's the one guy that could get in that grouping of beloved Jaguars. Now, look, Ramsey and Ngakoue are great young players. You go to 10 Pro Bowls and win some Super Bowls, you're in that grouping too. I get it. But in terms of just the way he carries himself, it's a neat story. I mean, Calais Campbell, the dignity with which he handles himself every time. You're in that locker room every day when it's in season. Every time.
He's phenomenal.
I've been on every plane flight that he's been on for this team. I've been in every hotel that he's been in with this team. He never a glitch. Never I had a bad day. Never I got blocked a bunch and I don't want to talk. Never I'm going to talk because I'm supposed to, but I'm going to be grumpy. Never. He might be as good at that part of it. I mean, I said this about Dale Murphy. I didn't cover the team. Dale Murphy is the nicest athlete I've ever met. He's the nicest athlete I've ever met. I think Calais is that guy. In this brutal, barbaric sport, right? He's that guy.
And Calais is getting ready to turn 33 in September 1st, and he's been at every single one of these OTAs. You know what voluntary means to Calais Campbell? I mean, and he's the player rep, so he would spar with me a little bit on the – he wouldn't criticize guys that don't come.
Right.
But my point is it might be voluntary, and Calais would be fine with that, but it's not to him. I mean, Calais feels like this is stuff you should be at. So, I mean, here's the oldest player on the roster, the one that probably should be a little worried about miles on the tires and preserving his career. He's been at every single OTA.
Absolutely. And by the way, another example, he's articulate as well as a really good football player. When he found out about Bart Starr dying, he said, "I'm saddened to learn about the passing of Bart Starr. His legacy has touched many people, and I'm lucky to be one of those that was inspired by his spirit. Thank you for being the ultimate role model for professional athletes. Rest in heaven." So that just goes to show you how seriously he takes the professionalism part of being an athlete.
He's got a dignity about him that's really cool. I think if there's one word that would describe Calais, and there's a lot of them, dignity's way up there. He understands the dignity of all, and he has a dignity about him.